Hello, everyone. I'm Caroline Williams from Benefit Advisors Network, here to welcome you to our webinar. Today, we will hear from BAN's Director of Marketing and Communications, Glenn Smith, who will talk about Essence Marketing, strategic marketing roadmaps for the new HR business landscape. You can follow along with the slide deck, which can be downloaded in the chat area in just a moment. I just have a couple of items before we begin. This webinar is being recorded, and a link to the recording will be shared by the BAN agency who invited you when it becomes available. That same agency will also send the HRCI and SHRM activity codes after verifying your full attendance on today's webinar. Since this meeting is being viewed by hundreds of people across the US, all callers are on mute. Please post your questions in the Q&A feature, and we will do our best to answer them at the end of the presentation. With all that said, I'll hand things over to our moderator, David Dragich, World Synergy's Marketing Account Executive, to get us started. David, would you like to begin?
Yes, thank you so much, Caroline, for the wonderful introduction. As mentioned, my name is David Dragich. I am the marketing manager with World Synergy, and today we're talking about Essence Marketing. Speaker, as already mentioned, is Glenn Smith, our CEO. It is no secret that times are certainly changed over the past 12, 15, 18 months. And now more than ever, it's very important to reevaluate your marketing strategy and how you can evolve with these times. It's no secret that digital has been a high priority over the past several years, but now as many folks are shifting over to online for not just only sales, but different market trends currently. So evolving your strategy, it's never been a more opportune time to take a look and re-strategize. So I'm sure this isn't our first Zoom webinar, but in case it is, we will be taking questions throughout. If you have any questions, feel free to just type them into the chat box and we'll address those throughout. You can also send me an email directly. My email is listed on the screen, ddragich@worldsynergy.com, and we'll get those answered for you, as well as at the end. So without further ado, Glenn, why don't you start us off?
David, thank you. So thank you, all of you, for attending today. I appreciate your time. Hopefully you'll gain some valuable insight of how we're perceiving the change in the economy and marketplace and how marketing needs to change. Normally the presentation that I give on this gets into really granular detail, about 90 minutes. So obviously we don't have that. So we're going to be, shortening it, although there are several slides. I'm going to have to skip a few as we go through this, but you will have a copy of the deck so you can look at all the individuals slides that we have. So as David said, write your questions either in the chat or send them an email. We'll make time at the end to address them. The presentation is really kind of in two parts. The first part, I'm going to try to convince you to change, and then the second part, I'm going to show you how to do it. So hopefully that will be of interest to you guys, and we'll have some fun. So the presentation topic is Essence Marketing. We'll explain what Essence is in a few seconds, but it's really, at the end of the day, it's once you create this essence, you build your marketing plans around it, and we call those roadmaps. And you can build several different types of roadmaps as you're going throughout your marketing campaigns in business. So it's going to include all the things that every marketer would want to know, in terms of optimization, SEO, and PPC and content. So we'll smatter those things in here. But this presentation isn't just for marketing folks. If you're an executive or a salesperson, hopefully you're going to get something out of this. So, as David said, times have changed in the last 15 to 18 months. Things have just been incredibly unique in terms of how things have been happening. So we're going to hopefully address a different way of looking at your business and marketing. So how has your business changed in the last 18 months? And one of the things that we we're looking at is some of the things that just high level things that have changed in the past 18 months. And very specifically, these are just some of the things that, we're thinking are going to affect or already have affected your business in some way, either good or bad. And again, I'm showing these things to you, not because they're necessarily related to marketing, but some are, but they're more than likely related to your business. And again, I'm not going to read all these to you because of time, but one of the things I think is really interesting, specifically for the marketers, is this cookieless future that we have. For those that, as I said, are in marketing, when you look at the number one player in search, which is Google, and the ability to track people using cookies has been the mainstay for decades. And now Google's committed to removing cookies and allowing cookies to be present. So, how do you track that traffic as you move forward? Again, we're going to talk about some of these things as we get into this, but it's incredibly interesting how some things have taken off and some things have decreased. So I want to show you just a couple trends that we think are unique to kind of tell the story of why marketing and businesses need to change for the future. So, we're looking at, in this particular example, it's a picture about remote pregnancy monitoring and how that's grown. And obviously that makes a lot of sense as you look at what's happened in the pandemic. E-learning, that shouldn't be a big surprise for those of you that have kids or you've taken some adult courses. All those have been really converted to an online or remote experience. And the reality of it is that even with schools going back, that's not going to change. So again, I want you to start thinking about your business and thinking about marketing, and there's a method to the madness of where I'm taking you with some of these trends. And then some other trends, as I said, some go up, some go down. So print materials is going down and probably not going to come back. At least if it does come back, it's not going to come back the way it was. So that might be a good thing, that might be a bad thing. But when you're looking at print material, the trend is obviously not to use it for specifically because of COVID, but in general, it's been decreasing. Paper magazines, those have been declining, so it's all gone digital. So the QR codes in the past 18 months. Now, if you would have gone back 3 years ago, the QR codes was actually supposedly going to die. It wasn't, the adoption rate wasn't taking off. It was actually decreasing. But the pandemic has increased the use of these QR codes. They're everywhere. They're in restaurants. And I just put some funny little snapshots, but they're used at the current Olympics to verify if you've had your COVID vaccine. And they're on badges now, so they're just everywhere. So, again, some trends that are really taking off because of the pandemic. Here's some for the marketing folks, some stats on marketing software, whether it's email, CRM, marketing automation, how that's increasing. Again, more the digital, right? Here's probably one of the last ones I'll share with you, just talking about ad spend. And that's, comparing analog versus digital, analog, print and so forth, and how digital is increasing. And again, all this makes sense. Everyone's virtual, everyone's involved in some type of digital ad campaign. And again, it's not going to go away. It's only going to increase. So what needs to change in your business, or what perhaps already has changed in your business because of the pandemic? And again, who knows? Maybe there'll be another wave of this. We don't really know. But a lot of the things that have taken place in businesses is in terms of change. Those things are not going to come back. Our company, World Synergy, we were over 30 employees, all in this office in Cleveland, Ohio, and we all went remote. And the reality of it is, a lot of us are not going to come back. We were able to service our customers remotely. But when you think about change, one of the things I want you to walk away with today is understanding where we're coming from a service or relationship era to an experience era. And that's one of the takeaways for today, is that this is actually changed. It's been actually developing over the last couple of years. The pandemic has caused this to really move in a big way from the relationship era. Now, if you look at all the different types of eras from a marketing perspective, hopefully you understood that you were in a relationship or service era, and that is how you approach marketing, how you approach sales. But this past 18 months, it's really skyrocketed the experience era. And the experience, if you look at it from a definition perspective, in the digital marketing or sales role, it's the feelings or the takeaway that you get, the emotions from the experience of working with your brand or working with your organization. So when we're talking about experience, we're talking about that feeling of working with a particular brand. So again, I grabbed some headlines. These are all current headlines talking about the digital experience era that we're in. And so I just want to grab some headlines just to show you that it's real, it's happening. And if you're not prepared for this change, you could be left behind, because at the end of the day, the physical nature of our businesses is not going to go back the way it was. So you have to change how that experience is in a digital way. This is from a Forrester report that they launched a playbook, a roadmap for how do you deliver an experience in your brand. And again, I'm not going to go into all the details. We don't have time, unfortunately. Here's another study from Accenture. So hopefully you're familiar with Accenture, one of the largest consulting firms in the world. And one of the interesting quotes here from Massimo was, we're developing a new category through experience. And when he says a new category, he means this is actually a new area in marketing that didn't exist before. And Accenture is getting behind it, building solutions and services model around how do you build and how do you continue to promote an experience with your brand. So this is a big deal. It is a big deal, and hopefully you're aware of it, and hopefully you're starting to prepare for it. Another from Ad Age. I'm sure if you're in marketing, you've probably read this hundreds of times, this magazine. Psychology Today, how emotions, how your feelings influence what we buy. Harvard, talking about the science of customer emotions. Again, Inc., but referencing Harvard professor saying 95% of purchases are subconscious. And those if you read further, the subconscious is actually being engaged by emotions or feelings. Again, we won't have time to go through all this, but Forrester study talking about, if you create an experience business, if you change your business to an experience business, how the lift on customer satisfaction, growth, retention goes much higher. And I took this from the article that people buy experiences, not products. Again, another report talking about the lift of creating an experience. And I'm not going to go through all this just because of time, because I want to get into the meat of how you actually build an Essence marketing program. But this one particular slide I think is interesting, because some of you are B2B, some of you are B2X, and some are B2B. We happen to serve all those different types of industries, but we've been hearing the past year that B2B folks think that the experience or the feeling doesn't exist in their market, and it's quite the opposite. Even though it's a B2B experience, I'm not buying a particular consumer product, the relationship and the experience roadmap that organizations build have a tremendous lift. So what's the experience or emotion of your employees, your customers, your vendors, your partners? What's that feeling do they get when they work with you, if at all? You know, what is that? So we talk about, World Synergy talks about this feeling, and which is the title of this presentation, about the essence. And so when you look at these brands as an example, the brands themselves obviously represent product or services. And some of you are probably familiar with most of these: Caswell, Macy. That might be unique to you. It is one of the, it is actually the oldest company in the United States. And so it's been around for over 200 years, and it's just amazing. And so you may not know that, but there's a reason why these products have endured the test of time, and it's because what is the feeling you get in working with that brand or that product? Again, some of you may have difference of opinions if they're good or bad feelings, but there is an underlying essence to their marketing plan. These all use a marketing plan built around something called an essence or a feeling. And so they want to instill those in you. So again, the essence of these brands, we're gonna go through a little bit deeper into this, but some of the brands, as an example, if you guys are Apple folks that are out there, you probably think a little bit differently than most, and you like the product because it's special. And if you're an Apple person, you're going to be pretty committed to being an Apple person for your whole life. And the product is there to be, very unique and very sexy and very, sleek in how it's designed. If you're a Harley Davidson owner, you probably maybe have a jacket or patch or shirt, t-shirts or whatever, but that brand is not about the bike, it's about freedom. And Apple's not about the product, it's about thinking differently and showing you that you're special. So again, those are feelings, those aren't products, that's the brand itself. So we're going to talk about how you go through this process of discovering what your essence is, and then how do you change your sales and marketing program to build around it. So what's the essence of your company? It's the why, the how, the what in this, and I've sourced Simon Sinek in this. This is mentioned in his book called The Golden Circle. He talks about how you define your organization. And then somewhere in the center of all this definition of, the what, the how, the why your business exists, in the center, there's a feeling. And we're going to explore that in a little bit. Here's a great book by Scott Galloway. If you haven't seen it, it's called The Four. And if you've read the book, you probably, can relate to the things that he mentioned. But if you haven't read it, you should. It really talks about these four brands that are out there, these four large brands, which in his book, he calls them the four horsemen. They're going to dominate the United States for the next 10 years. And they all have a different feeling to it. One is more cerebral versus Facebook's more the heart. Amazon, they say, is more of a guttural thing, and obviously Apple is being special, sexy products and so forth. So again, in this book, he talks about the essences and how important they are to these brands. So the definition, the essence, is a singular focus that best matches the feeling of your company. And once you discover what that is, then all your sales and marketing will change, because you're no longer talking about a product or service or function features. You're really trying to build an experience model. You're really trying to promote your brand through whatever that experience that you want your employees, your customers, your prospects, your partners and vendors to feel. So I'm going to go back to that golden circle real quick and talk about Harley Davidson. And again, it's it's that feeling that Harley Davidson has. And Harley Davidson has kept that essence for decades of what they're about, because if you know much about bikes, you know that there are faster bikes, quieter bikes, more inexpensive bikes that are out there, and that's not what the brand is. The brand is about freedom, and it's about self-expression, about and in fact their slogan, which they just changed this year, is freedom for the soul. And so that's been their tagline. So they've kept the essence. In fact, they use the essence in this particular case into a tagline. World Synergy, we do the same thing. Our essence is thrive, the feeling of thrive, and we have our slogan, from thought to thrive. So they're using it in their tagline here. It's not, it's obviously not required. When you talk about Disney as an example, there's this magic, and magic isn't mentioned in all of their slogans or taglines, if you will. So again, we're talking about the feeling of your company inside it. And so here's the way we go through this process of developing what, or uncovering what your essence is. So I'm going to slow down a little bit. Just, we're about halfway through the slide deck and about halfway through the presentation. So we're right on track. So when you look at this Venn diagram, if you will, you're going to talk about your offering versus your customer. And so we're going to use this diagram as kind of a starting point to develop what your essence is. So what we do in discovering the essence is we take your existing offering, whether it's a service or a product, and we put it in this Venn diagram. And again, I'll get into a little bit more details, but what you want to do is you want to uncover what are the products and services that you offer, and then you want to describe who's the ideal customer for that. And so when you go through this diagram, what you typically see in this, again, because of time, we won't go really deep, but when you look at your product or service offering, it's either you're taking something away, so you're maybe taking away time that they need to spend, or you're taking away the hassle, or you're adding some value. You're providing some value in that you're giving them a product, or you're just in some cases you're just checking the box, like I need a cleaning service, and yes, it's helping me, but it's not, the value isn't all that great. It's just something that I need to get done, right? Getting an oil change isn't like a high value item. And then again, you want to match those particular products and what they're offering you to the ideal customer or target market. So that's where you create this Venn diagram. And so the process that we go through is we take that diagram, we take each individual product, each individual service, and then we match it with the target customer, right? So who's your ideal? And once we've diagrammed all that, and I'll show you what that looks like in a second, we drill it down and we use a criteria of trying to figure out what is the feeling that each of those center parts that match feels. So what's the feeling the customer has when they interact with your product? And we use this criteria to go through this. Now, it's obviously a lot more involved in this, but we make sure that when we're going through and saying, all right, we believe the customer feels this, we want the employee to feel that, we want to make sure that that feeling possesses some of these criteria, if not all of them. So is it scalable? Is it believable? Can you sustain it? I mean, if it's just a short-lived feeling and you can't keep that feeling engaged, it's probably not a great essence for your organization. So again, go back to Disney magic. They want you to have a magical feeling every time you're using their product or in their park. So as I just illustrated, it's a set of characteristics or elements of your company. And once you uncover what that is, whether it's thrive or it's magic or it's freedom, you want to build your sales and marketing program around that and create an experience funnel, an experience roadmap to build the campaigns of your sales and marketing. So, again, we talked about this really high level before. When you're taking this deck home with you after the presentation, you can really get into the granular details of how you build out the customer focus and how you can build out your product offering. It doesn't really matter what you start with first. If you start with the customer focus or the product focus, at the end of the day, they're all, it's all going to give you the same result. So again, you're going to do this for each individual product or service. And then you're going to come back with a set of maybe 5 or 6 different types of feelings that you want folks to come away with the experience. And maybe in some of yours, depending on what you sell, maybe some of it's relief, that they have a company that can help them with, selling health insurance, or, it's peace of mind, whatever that is, you'll figure that out. And through our process, what we want to do is want to come up with what is the ultimate, what's that one tip of the spear of that feeling that you want everyone to have. Once you do that, you create what, in this particular case, we call it a value promise roadmap. And so the process that we go through is we take all those Venn diagrams that you have, right? All those different products and services, and then you match it to your target audience, right? Of what industry are they in? What type of client are they in? And then you match it on the other side to who's that individual that you're going to be talking to. And so obviously different products, you're going to have different people in maybe in healthcare, you're talking to a CFO or an HR manager, what have you. But obviously in different businesses, it's going to be different folks you're going to talk to. And so what we want to do is we want to identify those individual personas of each of those unique contacts that you're going to be working with. Sometimes it's multiple contacts, and you're going to build out what looks much like this. It might be a little bit more verbose, but this is the concept where you're matching the personas of who you're selling to, and then on the right side you'll see the UVP. We call it unique value promise. Is what you want, what's that story you want to tell to that individual about your particular organization. And the thing that's what we think is interesting is when you take your traditional model of telling that story from a product and service perspective, and now you take that and you pull it back a little bit and you say, all right, so what's the feeling I want them to have, because you have an essence to your business, and what is that feeling for the buyer or the user or the advocate? And again, I'll go back to Harley Davidson. It's freedom, right? So when they're telling a story, they're going to talk about where you're going to go. They're going to talk about the communities that they have, about all these different bike events that take place, and all these different types of bike rides that are out there. So you're going to talk about what's that feeling. And if you look at those types of commercials or ads for those products, you're going to see people enjoying freedom. You'll see people on the road. They're not going to show you a diagram of a Harley Davidson and all the key features of the bike. It's about what does that experience feel like. And then all of this is mapped out to when folks call your sales, they call customer service, they talk to marketing. What is that feeling that they should get when they engage? So at the end of the campaigns, it's really critical that you're looking at what you traditionally have been doing from a sales and marketing perspective, pulling back the function features, because in this slide really speaks well to that, is that it's not about your strengths or just your strengths, of your product or service. and which is what every traditional marketing person does. They talk about function features, or they talk about solutions itself. We want to have an underlying essence to your marketing message. So when that people see your brand, that they walk away with something that is different than your competitors. Because I can't tell you how many times I've heard organizations say, and I'm sure if you're in sales and marketing, you've heard this too, is, well, we sell the same product. And specifically in healthcare, a lot of times you're selling the same product. Or if you're in e-commerce, you might be selling the exact same product as somebody else or somebody on Amazon. So if you're selling the same product and you're selling it at a close or similar price, how do you differentiate your brand from the other guys? And it's about the experience. And again, we talk about how this pandemic has changed everything, and now we've gone digital. So the experience that you have to get across in a digital way is and has changed drastically in the past 18 months. So that's how you uncover your essence. And again, I know I simplified it quite a bit, but I want to now talk about how do you implement. So once you uncover what that essence is of your business and you discover what that is, how do you implement it? How do you build a marketing plan around it? So the concept of essence marketing is taking that feeling that you have and blending it into every experience, from your customers to your employees, inside of the solution itself. I mean, there's a reason why Apple, packaged things in such a unique way that you're excited to open it up, just because it's just a really unique way of how they've done it. Even if you go to a store, an Apple store, they want the experience to be, there's only so many people in the store. And so, if you go there and when a new product launches, you might have to wait to get in because they don't want it to be crowded. They want to give everyone the same experience. And I can give you hundreds of examples of brands that really focus on the experience and have been for the last several years. So when you think about the experience era that we're into, it's not brand new. It's been around for several years, but now it's in full gear because of the pandemic and how we're having to change our brand or our experience through a digital way. So there's a lot of ways that you can take that and you can build it into your existing sales and marketing process. What we do here is we use a process that we built called a need strategy, and it's really just a kind of a full cycle process where we're going through developing, the why, like Simon Sinek, and the value promise and value propositions, and develop the essence. And then you uncover those things. We just talked about the target audience, the personas, the sales journeys. And then you build these things out into, again, a roadmap. Some people, I know on a call, use a process called a blueprint. It doesn't really matter what the process is that you use to implement it. It's just that you have one. And so whatever that process is, whether it's a blueprint, whether it's one of our strategy roadmaps, or maybe you're using a entrepreneurial model like EOS, whatever that is to roll it out, to implement it, it doesn't matter. I've seen it work in various ones, but for today, we use our own, which is, again, we call it strategy. It's just these different sections that we go through, which is the thought, and then we build a strategic, we then create it, we execute it, and then we measure it, and then we do the whole thing all over again. So again, it doesn't matter what you call it, the strategy, the plan, the roadmap, the blueprint, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It's just that you have to follow it. And so what I took this nice kind of illustration of, a buyer's journey and a customer's journey. And again, for those of you that are in sales and marketing, you've seen these types of things already. And this is just one example. So the point about that is that if you're trying to emit a feeling of freedom, how does all of those different aspects of the journey, the buyer's journey, the customer's journey, experience freedom. So, what in that particular campaign, social media, whatever it is you're doing, what is that message, that takeaway? And in a lot of cases, you might have heard this term. It's called an omni-channel experience. And the omni-channel experience has never been more forefront in marketing than it is right now, because the omni-channel experience is about, it's exactly that. It's creating an experience for a brand that you want them to walk away with, no matter how they interact with your organization. So if they're coming from social media, you want that same feeling to be emitted. If they're going to read a blog, they're going to read or see a TV ad, they're going to listen to the radio, they're going to read an email, a PPC ad, whatever that is. You want that same feeling to be emitted through that process that you're of creating that content. So here's just one example. Another example, taking that same thing, we flip it over, the hourglass. Again, the buyer, the customer journey. Again, here's another different type of model. And again, what I'm trying to point out is that it doesn't matter like what your funnels or pipelines look like or how they're created. It's just at each of those stages, how do you give them that feeling of, again, in our case, is we want to give the tools and solutions to make employees, to make customers feel like they're not just surviving, but they're thriving. They're getting solutions that are making them better than they were before, and that they're continually growing. And so that's a thrival experience that we want. And it's hard to do because customers coming in and out of this journey so differently than they ever had before, because it's all digital. So they'll explore the journey or the buyer's journey so differently. Now they're coming in through Alexa, they're coming in through chat boxes, they're coming through TV, whatever that is. They're coming through at various places. And those are called micro moments. And when they experience your brand, you want them to walk away with a feeling. So, how do you do that in those different types of devices? This is again another type of model, just talking about the different types of funnels that are out there. This slide is really just suggesting that you need more marketing, more involved ever than before. In fact, if I was building a new graph, I'd probably say marketing and sales are the same. They should be married, and they should own the whole funnel. They should be in communication the whole time as they're building this thing out. And here's another funnel. Some people call this the MOFU, TOFU, and BOFU, the top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel. And so the point I'm trying to make here is that when you look at your existing sales process and you're talking about how do I get them to come down through a funnel, and you have all these different campaigns or these tactics, if you will, how do you emit a feeling? And again, it's going to be different as you go through this particular sales funnel or your sales funnel. All right. So what we do is, having you done all that homework and you've all mapped it all out, we create this in a tool called Monday.com. It's a kind of a project management tool for, we think it's for marketers. We use it for a lot of different reasons, but we put all the specific months and the different campaigns and the different efforts that we're trying to do based on seasonality of your product and so forth. And what we try to do is you go through each of these particular tactics, if you will. You're trying to instill a certain type of feeling. And so I just listed some here. I don't know if you guys can read this or not, but some of the feelings of the essence is cost conscious, availability, prepared, patience, trusted, eager, helpful. I put a whole bunch of them in there, but at the end of the day, you really want to focus on one. You want to focus on what's the top essence of your organization, and you want to blend it in. So then when you're saying, okay, mine is freedom, and you're looking at all the different types of campaigns and all the different channels you're going through, how does that emit that feeling? And you're not going to always get it right. It's going to take time to figure this thing out. But you want to map this thing out. And again, the tool that we use is called Monday.com. You can use any type of project management tool. I know some of you have HubSpot. We're a HubSpot user, and as well as a HubSpot partner. We use HubSpot to do some of this stuff as well, to map this thing all out. So, when you have this slide deck and you're going through this and you're mapping all these things we talked about with the roadmaps and so forth, this last piece is your content strategy. And we call them themes, because oftentimes when you build this essence marketing, is you're going to come up with a theme for that year. And I'm going to use again Harley, because it's freedom for the soul. That's their content theme. And so they're going to be building all these different campaigns and all these different touch points around that slogan. So your essence, I believe it will help you survive and thrive in an experience era. And again, I hope you are thinking differently about your business. I hope you're thinking different about your marketing, and not just being a traditional sales and marketing and talking about function features, but trying to build an essence and then promote it, because the essence will stand a test of time. And again, I go back to these brands. These brands are out there for a reason, and they remain out there for a reason, whether you like them or not. They have strong essences, and our little tagline here is, focus on your essence, not just your strengths. And that is it. I talked for 44 minutes. As I promised, I would leave this open for questions. So David, I'm going to hand it back to you, and let me know if there's any questions.
Thank you so much, Len. Can that essence change over time? Just to kind of ad-lib over that question, I mean, we're looking at these huge brands, and some have evolved over time, but a lot of them have kind of stayed true. So I'm actually curious to your answer on that as well. So can your essence change over time?
Yeah, and it's very similar to, again, Simon Sinek. If you look at that, and he talks about your why, and the why as well as your essence should not change. And just think about it. The use of a big brand as an example. Think about Disney. If they change their experience from being a magical experience to something else, perhaps being a cost-effective way of having entertainment or something bizarre like that, you imagine what it would do to the brand. Because going to Disney obviously is not cheap, but they spend every ounce of energy and monies on creating that magical experience. So the short answer is that your why and your essence shouldn't change. But as I talked about in the presentation, you can have different themes each year to apply that. But if you develop a great essence, it's going to stand the test of time.
That makes sense. I know you referenced at least one other book earlier on when referencing the Golden Circle. Did you have any other books you could recommend to, myself and the rest of the viewers on this webinar / chat to kind of read into this a little bit more? Yeah,
so I mentioned the 4 from Scott Galloway, starting with your why from Simon Sinek. There's several other books that I can actually email out to Caroline. She can send it out with the presentations. There's the title escapes me a bit, but Robert Rose is one of the authors of it, and I believe it's called The Experience Era. but he talks about in this particular book, and Rose is from Cleveland, is coincidentally, and he talks about how this has been developing over the past 3 or 4 years, and how the great brands have built this experience model. And in his book, he talks about how he believes this is going to be the next era for the next 20, 25 years. But I'll definitely get you a copy of some of the books that I've used to help reference.
Yeah, that'd be helpful. We can include that via Caroline in the chat, or the follow-up with the PDF for everyone to review. I think that'd be helpful. That's all the questions I have on our end. I don't know if we want to just give a moment for some others to consider and maybe pop into the chat. While they do that, I just wanted to also kind of wrap up with just an overall thank you message again for everyone's time. And yes, we will be sending out these slides and the PDFs after this at the conclusion of the webinar, along with the reference to the books. But just to make a comment, I already briefly tagged along that how these are such large brands that Glenn mentioned in the presentation, but still, with everything being so virtual, could you imagine Disneyland without being able to go to Disneyland? Now, the challenge that they have, where they have to focus on their overall experience and how they can boost that experience, without having to go to their amusement park. Luckily, websites exist and the internet exists, and they're already well off and very successful. But if they had to take off now, that would completely throw a wrench in their business plan. If they couldn't reference or drive folks to their actual amusement park where they spent all their budget. So
right.
Using that as an example to now looking at our websites, looking at our different platforms and how we're creating content, it's crucial. You can't compare yourself to Disney and Apple, but you can learn from what they've done and kind of relate that back to whatever your business is. Because the tools are certainly there and the partners are there to help you as well.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And obviously, I bring up these large brands just because people can relate to them, but the Essence marketing applies to every small and mid-sized business. And the tools and technology is becoming more and more cost effective as you get into it. And to your point about Disney, for the past 12 to 18 months, they obviously have had to do some type of pivoting, and they don't just survive by their parks; they survive by their movies and by the products that they sell, right? As well as the games that they're building, and so the online games that they have, and trying to create that same magical experience. But what you'll see in a lot of, and again, not knowing everyone that's on the call and the product and services you sell, but you're starting to see this augmented reality, virtual reality tools being used. If you have a product, let's say it's a couch or whatever, and you can take that product and show what it's going to look like inside of your home or your office, right? I mean, that's an augmented reality experience. And again, if that helps your build out your essence, and helps keep your essence moving forward, then that's a great tool. My wife buys lots of clothes, and now she's using augmented reality to scan her body type, and she's trying on clothes virtually, where you never even thought that could be a possibility, right? Now, if she tells me from a shoe experience, you have to be there and physically try the shoes on and walk on them. So that experience apparently can't be fulfilled through augmented reality, but you can with dresses.
Fortunately. Fortunately.
Yes, that's right.
Thank
Fortunately,
you guys. Just to kind of follow up with what David was saying, yeah, we're gonna send out a link to the recording, and I just posted the link to the slide deck, so you can download that in the chat area. Aside from that, we will be sending out the HRCI and SHRM codes. Those will come from the agency that invited you today. So look out for that email. And aside from that, I just want to thank you both for being here. And Glenn, thank you so much for all that information. It's just, you're always a wealth of knowledge, and we appreciate you being here. And David, thank you for moderating so well. We appreciate both of your time today. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules as well. Anything else? Any closing remarks from you guys?
No, in the presentation, they'll have all of our contact information. So if we can help further a discussion, I'd love to do it. This is obviously our passion. It's what we believe in. It's what we believe are going to make companies thrive. Yeah, we'd love to help. So thank you. Thanks everyone for your time.
Thank you so much. All right, well, if there's nothing else, then we will release you to go back to your days. Enjoy it. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of your week. And thanks again for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Take care.